So, thanks again for tuning in to the Startup Scaffold podcast, where we interview exciting early stage founders and advisors sharing their lessons and tips building solutions for the construction industry. We're sponsored by Formwork Labs, which is a startup accelerator for the construction industry. And today we have on Yael from Pelles. So, welcome to the pod, Yael.
Hi, welcome. Happy to be here.
So I just wanted to anchor this conversation in your journey and your story of, one coming into construction and then going through the process of actually how did you get to the idea of Pelles and start to build that solution. But before we get there, I just would really love for you to give us a quick framing of what Pelles is today and what Pelles, does for the industry so that we can anchor the conversation and really understand, how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So at Pelles, we are building the leading AI platform for trade contractors. So we don't work with anyone else, just subs across different trades, across different sizes of companies, and across different states, only in the US. And basically our platform is here to help them figure everything out in one place, all the data they need, get it quickly, efficiently, and act upon it automatically according to their specific workflows and needs. And you'll forgive my French, but subs are being thrown a lot of shit at, and we're basically helping them figure it out.
Yeah, no, that's a great framing. And I think it's interesting focusing on the subs because I do generally hear about solutions focusing on the GC. So, seeing a lot more on the subs or that opportunity in the subs is really interesting. And I will get to that process of why you focus there later in the conversation. But I think just stepping back, how did you start in the construction industry? What was your first role? How did you get into, what is construction?
Sure. So originally I am a lawyer and I got into construction law very coincidentally, right? I worked at a very large law firm. The partner I wanted to work with did construction law. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. But then the first time you walk in the street, there's nothing there, right? And then you walk in the same street 2 years later and suddenly you have a huge building. And you're like, oh my God, this is I don't know, it was like a 40-story high-rise. I'm like, I was a part of building this, right? But that feeling for me, the first time that happened, that was incredible. I fell in love in the industry. I fell in love with the people, real, no bullshit people. And I did that for almost 6 years. And that was basically how I got into construction.
Yeah. And then I guess going from that place, at what point do you go, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore and go, actually, I want to build something? How does that journey start?
Well, honestly, I never wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't want, I didn't know what I want to do when I grow up. And somebody told me go to law school, so I did. That was basically the process. But then I relocated with my family. And being a lawyer is a very, specific job for specific locations. You need to know the laws, the rules, the language, all of that. And when we relocated, I stopped being a lawyer and started working for a tech startup. It was in the medical device industry, nothing to do with construction, but I was very early there. I was I think employee number 8 or something. Mm-hmm. And then I figured out that this is actually what I want to do when I grow up. Tech startups are incredible. They find this problem, they solve it. I also realized that the medical device industry isn't really for me, but that was basically my leap from being out of being a lawyer into startups.
And what was it about tech startups that was so alluring to you?
I think being able to see a problem in a way nobody before you have seen and then build from scratch something to solve it. You actually make things. And I think this is also what I loved in construction when I was a lawyer. It's not fluff, it's not nice to have, it's you build huge things. And construction is like that, and tech startups have the opportunity to become that. So I think that for me is what's exciting.
And that's a really interesting background that you have, because on one side you have construction industry experience and then you have general tech startup experience. How have you found that come to where you are today? Is there kind of nuances of building a tech startup that you think is valuable, no matter for whoever's building in the construction industry? Because you've kind of learnt two things before you dove into, I want to build a construction-focused tech startup.
So definitely yes, and definitely, but with a grain of salt, I would say. I am a part of a team of 4 co-founders. We are really diverse. Ido Glantz, my co-founder, CTO, He is originally a mechanical engineer who worked construction and then shifted into AI and software and worked for tech startups. My VP R&D, Matan Wexler, he is a data scientist, worked for huge tech companies like Salesforce, Samsung. And then my fourth co-founder only worked for startups, but nothing to do with construction, strong operator in a fauna fagam. And I think that the mix of both construction and non-construction tech gives us, on the one hand, the understanding and the nuances of the industry, but on the other, general knowledge of how you build a company and how you build good product and what are, how you scale a company, all of those things that it doesn't really matter on which industry you're building, you just need to know. Though some of us have experience in construction, none of us was a foreman in a mechanical contractor company. So it's kind of still being on the outside, which allows us to be great listeners and not coming with a bias of, hey, this is how a solution should look like, because we've done it 15 years in the field.
And I think that's an interesting question as well of where did Pelles come from, right? None of you are from that particular sector of construction. So how did you come about this solution? Or was this even the first iteration of Pelles? Is this what it looked like?
Nope. Not at all. I think that when we got into Formwork Labs, our pitch and the problem we thought we were going to solve was completely different than what we did today. But not to jump ahead of the conversation, one of the great things we got through the program is the access to brick and mortars network and the access to industry experts and professionals. And we just started spending time. And to be honest, ending up with building for the trades is a mix of both being realistic and romantic at the same time. And romance, I say, because Ido, my co-founder, like I said, he's originally a mechanical engineer. He worked construction while paying for engineering school in the field, building HVAC systems. And he's very romantic about the trades. He's like, they're doing the hardest job. I want to help them. They need the tools. He's very romantic about it. Us, we're more realistic and pragmatic. You have a huge vertical who does have specific challenges, needs, and not enough tools. Nobody's actually building good tools for trades. So I think that is the mix, which led us to end up there.
And I think then maybe just taking a step back of why did you decide to apply to Formwork Labs? Where were you prior to that? And then what makes you go, actually what we need is a construction accelerator? Because if I looked at your founding team, you got 2 founders with construction experience, 2 founders with really strong startup experience. On the surface, you might look at it and go, do we need to be in an accelerator program?
True. I think, so for accelerator programs, you look for one of 2 things, right? You either look for somebody who's going to teach you how to build a startup. What is a founder's agreement? What is a cap table, equity, all of those things. We didn't need that. Seriously. A lot of the sessions at Formwork Lab is about that. We didn't need that at all. The other thing you're looking in, accelerators like Formwork Labs, is industry-specific knowledge and access. And basically that's what brick and mortar gave us. They give us access to an incredible network. You get to interview and sit with people that to get to them and open the door to have a conversation with them would be super hard otherwise. They literally accelerated our entire ideation process by opening up those doors. That's one thing. The other thing is that construction is all about credibility. And yeah, we are a strong founding team, but we come from Israel and we are building for the US. And breaking into that industry for the first time, none of us has worked construction in the US. None of us has previous experience in mechanical contracting companies. All of those, credibility matters, your brand matters. Brick and mortar gave us that stamp that opened the first door saying, oh, they put their name on them. They must have been doing something right. I can spend 30 minutes with them. Then from there, we need to earn it, right? But it gives us that first push that we needed, both for credibility and access, basically.
Yeah, okay. That's super interesting. And then I guess, shifting a little bit to the end of that program, were there any valuable lessons or takeaways that shape how you operate today? Things about the construction industry in the US that you did learn?
I think that we've learned to come modest. You never assume you know. Some would say that assume is making an ass out of you and me, right? You never assume. You come and you truly listen and you are open and you are curious, and that's where and how you make the biggest leaps forward.
Okay, and I think like on that related note, is there a moment that you remember from your experience, if it's funny, surprising, pivotal, like something that just sticks out in your mind a few years later?
Oh yeah, I don't know if Alice knows what I'm talking about. Maybe for her smile she does. I think that not halfway, but like 2/3 through the program, you have like a feedback session with all of the brick and mortar partners about where the product is at and your ideation. And we felt good. We came in super confident to that session and we got hammered. Like, I don't know what's the best way to describe it, but we left that room and the initial reaction is like, oh my gosh, we're shocked. And like, oh my gosh, they just hated everything we did for the last 2.5 months and what we're gonna do. But she's laughing, she knows what I'm talking about. But that gave us the kick and that gave us the motivation to go back to the sketching board and be better and be more precise and be more focused and run faster. So in hindsight, probably that's what we needed, but I think all 4 of us really remembered that session.
Yeah, wow. What was your product before that stage and after that stage? Is there a decisive change in like what happened?
Yeah. That was a huge pivot between what we initially thought we were building, and that was like, that feedback session was the turning point into, we're gonna throw all of that and start from scratch. And basically it led to what we're building today.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Look, I want to switch up the conversation a little bit more, and then we can also pull in Alice a little bit more, which is, going from where Pelles is today and what the future holds, but then also what we see in terms of the future of AI. So going on a little bit more of the concepts around MCP, about building models versus this interface layer, which we kind of touched on with workflows and things like that you mentioned earlier. But I think maybe just from your framing of where Pelles is today, and where do you think Pelles has to go to get more traction in the industry, and then I think we can riff from there.
So basically the way we see it, we are the one place to help trade contractors figure everything out about their project. That means that we are integrated to all of the places they get their data and their documents from, and we are that intelligence layer to help them figure out what they need and then to automatically create anything they need out of it. And it could be their RFIs, it could be their duct schedule or their conduits or anything that is based out of that data. Quickly, efficiently, make sure they make no mistakes. That's the first thing. Now, Pelles today is at the stage where it's building the different building blocks to make all of that happen and to make all of that available. Down the line, the way we see it is that we are that place where all of your data lives, and we are the source of truth for everything that's happening in your business, both per project, but also across different projects, to get that intelligence that most contractors today don't get. Where am I making my margins, right? What am I making my margins on? Which projects should I build? And AI allows us a lot of it. I would say, in terms of traction, knock on wood and everything, but we're in a really good place, right? In terms of like a young company, and we started to sell not that long ago, we're growing nicely. There is a very delicate balance, like at least in how we believe it is. We build a product hand in hand with a feedback loop from the industry, right? We're VC backed, we could have sit in a garage for at least a couple more months, built, and then go out to market. We decided that we want actual users from day one, because that helps you build a great product. But construction is an industry that is not very patient to immature products and so on. So we're still at the stage that we are evaluating who are the right partners for us, and we probably need a couple more months to be able to say, hey, this is now open up for everyone and just come on board. So it's basically more of a product maturity thing than everything else.
Yeah, I think just digging a little bit more into something that you said, which is like, hey, we want to be that data ownership layer and then building AI on top of that. So that could be, you integrate to Procore or to Autodesk or to other people, get all their data so that me as a trade contractor can actually access it and use it in a meaningful way, because right now it's disparate. And I think like something that Alice shared with me recently, and I'd be curious to hear your concerns around it, was, Autodesk seemed to have updated their terms and conditions and gone, hey, like, we can't, we're not allowing our customers to put AI on top of these things. And I think like one of the concerns all of us has is all of these industry big players who have the data don't want other people to own this interface layer. So I guess, is there ways to get around that? Like, as a startup, how do you think about both what's happening in AI and potential competitive threats?
So I think that there's a couple of interesting things for this. I think, first of all, we're already integrated into ACC and Procore and a lot of those places. And I think that their blockages, or the things that they are trying to prevent, is they don't want you to do any actions on top of it that change it. Like, Autodesk see themselves as, the baseline platform for everything, and as long as you respect their vision and their spot in this, I think we can coexist. And that is basically the way we do it. And I think that, for example, Autodesk University is coming up, right? And for many, many years, it had like an MEP specific day and content. And for the last couple of years, they were unable to do that. And this year, we have a pre-conference MEP day that is coming up. Just a few tech companies with Autodesk, or like 4 of us with Autodesk, who are bringing invite-only MEP contractors. Again, they respect us, we respect them, and there's enough room and enough work for everybody to be done. If you don't respect them, yeah, they'll lock you out. But there is a way to build a product that respects their boundaries, understands their place. I do not intend to replace Autodesk. Like, that's not my vision. So I don't think that's a threat, like all of those big companies, not at all. If anything, maybe an exit strategy. Do we say exit in this startup right now?
If you want to, yeah.
But I think that
too early.
But I think that main competition is probably other startups building similar or different solutions for the industry. That's in my specific perspective, and even more so for trades. I wouldn't say that there isn't competition, but obviously there is less competition versus if you're building to a GC.
And I think for the trades, there really is no kind of winner in the project management space for trades. I think a lot of trades have been forced into using ACC or Procore or whatever it is, kind of depending on what project they're working on and which GC they're working with. So there's always been this, like, for the trades already, this extra layer of needing more integrations, just because, the GCs, like, just even if we just take the project management example, if a GC uses Procore, right, they're going to force their trades to use Procore to enter in all of the information. But for the trade, if it's that same project manager working on 10 different projects with 10 different GCs, chances are they're probably using Procore plus ACC, possibly even AConnex, maybe even CMIC. They're using, so many other project management tools. And I would say the trades never really had, a data repository system for their own data. It's always been whatever they input into the tool that the GC is requiring them to do. So in some sense, I would actually say there is no kind of, underlying data repository or kind of storage system for trade data, maybe outside of SharePoint or Box or, whatever that they may be using to just like dump and store stuff that is very... or a local server that is like super unorganized. And I do think there's an interesting opportunity there where, there could be a player that ends up, integrating with all the data sources or becoming a kind of user interface on top of, this, and providing the workflows that the trades needs, and then doesn't require the trade to, use all of these different systems. They may be able to have one tool, one user interface to then access and interact with data across all of these different systems.
Even if you're very lucky and all of your projects as a trade contractor are Procore, you still log in and out every time to each project.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have one place where you can compare, pull data, make insights, know what's going on, because it's crazy. You're at the bottom of the food chain. You do whatever that GC calls you to do. Then you need to talk with your subs. How do you do that? Via email, on the phone? Where do you get your, the data from them for your submittals, so on? It becomes very, very complicated.
And then how vertically do you have to integrate? And what I mean by that is, on one side, you're talking about being a data repository so that you can do effective analytics. But on the other side, as Alice attested to, is like this idea of being a project management layer, a workflow layer, or an interface layer. Because there's kind of 2 points. There's you got to build the building blocks to each of the software platforms so that you can connect to them. But then potentially for lock-in, you need to build in those workflow steps so then people are going, hey, I want to use Pelles and I don't want to use something else. Or you allow other people to build on top of your platform. How do you view that? Because it's almost two different products at one stage. I don't know if it is, but yeah, it could be.
I agree, and I think that Alice says that better than me, that even today with our initial stages, we have a lot of different products already built into a product. And I think that on the one hand, like I said before with Autodesk, there's a lot of things that are going on in the market that we do not intend to replace, and interacting with them is the way. And talking about MCPs, that's the future, how we interact and how our users are going to get that centralized, personalized, relevant view for them easily, efficiently. But some things you have to build for them to work for your specific users and their specific workflows, because otherwise you'll be irrelevant. And it's a delicate balance of how you build a product, and I think that right now we're walking in between it. So we're not choosing one side. There's a lot of things that we're going to connect to and utilize and use, and we're already doing that. And then there's some things that we're just going to replace because it just makes sense.
Yeah, and then is there a point where you do have to choose? Like if you touch on the point of like MCP is a new protocol or AI is just developing so quickly, it's very challenging not to get technical debt, like especially in this field with just how quickly things are getting built. Like I've talked to AI startups saying, hey, like in the last 18 months, we reskinned our entire tech stack three times, right? Like how do you actually make the decision between this is something that if we build today, it's going to last for 12 months, 18 months versus hey, like this is something that we need, but it might only last 3 months, but that's a decision we need to make to get this customer.
So I think that one of our strengths is that we have incredible tech and product team. And I can talk about it because I'm not a tech person, right? It's not me. I'm talking about other people. Yeah, they're my co-founders, but we have a really incredible tech and product team. And their wisdom to, on the one hand, understand the true pain points of our users and how their workflows look like and where we can optimize on the one hand, and then on the other, really crystallizing what the technology can do for it and translating it into a product and building the product in a versatile way where you can grow with the technology, which is basically what we did. No secret sauce that we're going to splash more than that, but that's one of our selling points and our unique propositions. And we are a very young company that is funded but not tremendously, and we've already built way more product and quality versus a lot of the big tech startups that are out there that have raised 10 times more than us and have been 6 or 7 years more around. So I think luckily that's the team I'm working with.
Yeah.
And even on our end, right, as an investor, we've been able to actually learn a lot from working with the Pelles team, right? Because we're almost like, probably a few steps behind the technologists that are out there, learning and understanding, how do we leverage the latest models? How do we build tech in a way that we can continue to leverage the latest models? As we looked at the overall AI space, we actually learned a lot from the Pelles team and how they've been able to execute on just making sure that they're on top of the right way of doing AI implementation and the right way of, interacting with customers. And if you look at the Pelles product, they've built in a lot of like really smart features to make, I would say, like AI use as easy as possible for the customer. And that's a testament to that team being able to talk to the customers and really meet them where they're at. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges with AI today is, you can have a lot of AI tools out there, but, if a contractor talks to a chatbot the way that they would talk to a human, there's no way that chatbot is going to give you the right answer, right? In construction, we are so used to calling up a friend and being like, hey, I need some help. Can you tell me how to commission this equipment, right? And when you call a friend, they know exactly the context. They know everything about what you're asking. They know what project you're working on. They already have all of that content. But if you just try to do a replacement of call a friend versus ask an AI chatbot, right? That AI chatbot does not have any of that context, and that human is not going to want to take the time to go explain the entire history of a project to some AI chatbot just to get an answer. They're going to go call up their friend, right? So I think there's this interesting thing with, how do you interact with AI as a construction professional? And I think the Pelles team has done a really great job at, like I said, meeting the customer where they're at. And I think that's a really big learning for, a lot of different companies that are building AI in this space. And yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes secret sauce stuff going on, in Pelles that makes it super easy. And I do think, even to whoever's building new companies or looking to invest in this space, really spend the time to look at, the customer interactions with a lot of these tools, look at churn, look at actual usage, because a lot of those metrics are going to be extremely important. And yeah, some of the companies out there, they're closing big contracts, but when you look at actual usage, it's really not where we would expect or want the company to be.
Do you then, as an investor, have a different diligence process based on what you've learned from kind of Yael's team and how you look at AI startups now? Because I think almost every startup feels like it's an AI startup now, and the way that they're building product evidently needs to be different. So is there a new kind of way that you're updating the way that you diligence deals?
Yeah, you're right. Every company is an AI company now, right? Just like a couple of years ago, every company was a tech company. Even a little bit after that, every company was a sustainability company, right? Now the new buzzword is every company is an AI company. And I think that's where you really have to kind of take a look at how are they leveraging certain models, right? Are they just using off the shelf? Are they actually, layering in construction specifics on top of that? But in some sense, if you think about just building out simple AI workflows, it almost is becoming a commodity. There's a lot of companies that are throwing out I'm going to do, bid leveling, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, right? But a lot of that is on a super surface level with pretty low accuracy. So I think really digging into what is that use case? What level of accuracy is that AI model? What level of accuracy does the customer require that, right? And this was a lot of learnings through Pelles and some of our other investments where there's certain things where 80% accuracy is enough. But there are certain things where you better damn well be 100% accurate or I'm going to lose my shirt on this project. There's a lot of understanding around what are the model's current capabilities and understanding what is realistic accuracy that you can get to. What is the amount of training data that you need, whether you do or do not need that? Can you build in, human in the loop to help train those models? Is that interaction with the customer, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that may not be familiar with construction building tools for construction, but it's not a way that a customer would want to interact with the software or user interface in itself. So a lot of it does come back to, are these founders or are these companies actually sitting down with customers, understanding how they want to interact, what are their actual workflows, and then really building a tool for that specific workflow rather than I guess it's another way of thinking about the hammer looking for a nail kind of thing, solution looking for a problem and looking for a solution thing. There's a lot of applications, but there are definitely a AI readiness component to it, as well as a is the customer even okay with this type of AI? And a lot of it is also, what is their comfort level? What are they seeing on the consumer side? How are they kind of getting educated about this space?
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point that you make, because there's this almost alignment of what's the customer feedback, where is that sitting on our roadmap, what's the AI readiness, and then should we actually go ahead and build it? And I think that'd be super interesting to see, which I don't think, it's probably a bit of the secret sauce of Pelles, but it'd be really interesting to see how that roadmap starts to get defined, because it's all about identifying low risk use cases almost to build up the trust and then kind of moving up the stream. But on that same point then, do you think that we don't potentially need foundation model innovation, because the foundation models that either ChatGPT or OpenAI or Claude are good enough, but what we really need is context above it and workflow understanding above it so that you can actually get reliability on top of those models? Because I don't think, I don't know about your opinion, Yael, or even on brick and mortar, I don't think brick and mortar has invested in a foundation model for construction either.
I don't think there even exists anyone, or I think there have been people claiming that they want to do this, but around kind of BIM data and 3D model data. And my first reaction to that is most of our BIM data is shit anyways. Tell me, who has good as builds, tell me who has accurate information. So if you're trying to train a model based on bad data, it's garbage in, garbage out. And, one can argue, oh, you can create synthetic data. There's all these different arguments around it. But in some sense, I'm I don't even know if we necessarily need that, right? Because geometries are changing on a regular basis. The way that we design, the way that we use space is changing. I mean, yeah, like we've used space the same way for a really long time, and yes, there is a lot of that data. But at the same time, it's that fine line of whether or not we do need to train on historical stuff, or, in some sense, is the model going to get good enough where we can feed it, less data, or do we start collecting data today and then build kind of AI models on top of that? So no, I don't really even I don't even know what a foundation model for AEC would look like. I have seen some interesting companies that are doing like a foundation model for like physical space that is more related to, I would say like, outdoor physical space that's not necessarily construction focused. There are companies also looking at this for GIS data, which I think is extremely interesting, right? But then again, those are not really companies that we would necessarily invest in because, a lot of the time those models will take, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to build up, train, and whatnot. And frankly, like for us as the construction industry doesn't have, huge R&D budgets, wouldn't be the end of the world to kind of let other people fund it, and then we can kind of take advantage of that later on. Similar to self-driving vehicles and autonomous, equipment in construction, right? With those people kind of test it out, consumerize it, make the world kind of comfortable with it. And we are happy being second followers because like at the end of the day, like construction does take a bit of time to go and follow and try out new tech. So yeah, I actually don't even remember what the question was.
Yeah, no. I'd be curious, Yael, if you that's funny.
Well, I think that to top what Alice said or like add on, I basically agree. I think that a couple of years back, everybody was talking about, hey, let's invest in this startup because it's going to build the next foundation model. I think that today everybody realizes that to build a foundation model, you need to have access to tremendous amounts of resources, both in money and others. And that race has been pretty much already decided. And yeah, there's not one winner, there is a bunch, 4, 5, 6, whatever you can, depending how you count. But I think that for an early stage startup, if you're just now starting, it's probably unrealistic to say, hey, I'm gonna raise, I don't know, $100 million and start training my own foundation model. And that would be just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of, for vertical specific industries, not just construction, there's a lot of things to be done because the foundation model as its own off the shelf is just not good enough. Like Alice said, it starts from how you interact with it that is not relevant for the industry. But even if you ask it something simple, can I use aluminum, right, in this project? Are you knowing that you're a mechanical contractor and you're asking, can you use aluminum for the ductwork? Or maybe you're an electrical and you want to know it for the conduits. Or is it compliance with the code, knowing where you are and what the code is and what code are you referring to? So there's a lot of industry-specific knowledge, terms, layers, understanding that you need to inject into how you retrieve information, how you generate your deliverables, and then understanding of workflows to make sure you wrap it all up in a way that brings your end users something that is usable, that is actionable, and that is suited for them. I think that we're all talking about how AI is going to help our users, right? But one of the things that AI allows us as software companies to do is to build better, flexible software. Mm-hmm. We don't need to go to our users and say, hey, you now sort all of your data in a certain way to use my very cool, great software. I can come to you where you are at. I can build the features flexible enough so you can use them the way you want to use them. And if you're an asphalt contractor out of Amarillo, Texas, doing 50, 60 million a year, you're using it very, very differently than if you're a top 5 ENR mechanical contractor building a Tesla factory. And leveraging AI allows us to build a platform that is flexible enough and user-friendly enough to accommodate both at the same time.